Okay, so you notice the height there that he built his castle to the north. Now remember the story of Bathsheba? It says David went out to the roof of the castle, and he's up higher than everybody else. Now Bathsheba was the wife of Uriah the Hittite. He was a top soldier, and they know where the soldiers were quartered. Just they weren't in the castle. They were the next thing down below. Okay, the lower people lived at the lowest part of the city. That's how the king always lived on top and worked its way down. Well, David was higher than everybody else. He goes out on the rooftop, and Bathsheba is bathing herself, and that's what he sees, because he just goes out there and he's on top of everything he can see, and he focuses his eyes on her, and you know the rest of the story. Now let's look at the layout of the city of David. Here's a 3D animation of what you notice that he built his castle up here now. He's extended a few acres up here to the north. Here's another picture. Just some other ones here. This is from Biblical Archaeological Review right there, way back. And remember, this is the Gihon Spring right here, which is believed to be the remnants of the Gihon River from the Garden of Eden. And we talked about that. I have that up on YouTube. But this would be the fortress up to the north up there that David built his castle. Let me see what we're doing for time here. Be winding down here in a little bit. This is just a little depiction of the layout of the land. And you see Ophel right here. Ophel is basically the city of David. This is all Mount Moriah. Ophel is part of Mount Moriah. It goes up. You have these natural moats or valleys after Mount Moriah, the Bethsaida Valley and Akra. The Valley of Jehoshaphat, you'll see that listed in the book of Joel. Jehoshaphat is a nickname for the Kidron Valley, the Valley of Jehoshaphat. Mount of Olives, the Tyropian, the Valley of Hinnom, and the Tyropian Valley right here. And then this, over time, when the city expanded, took the name Zion. But this originally was just barren land. Zion is the city of David, as we've seen from the scripture, and the archaeological record proves that. And so it's very important, because there's things over here that attribute to history of the Bible which couldn't have happened over here. They're sea sites, okay? And once you know that, you get upset about it, because you know people are trying to take you over there. It's just another depiction of Zion and where it was located. It's another picture there. This is a model in Jerusalem. You can go to the Israeli Museum, and it's a model of Jerusalem. You can see the size of the people there in relation to the model. You see the temple to the right. Between the arrows is in the 1st century now. This is what the city of David, it expanded all the way over here to Jerusalem, but this is where the city of David was, south of the temple. That's what it may have looked like based on the records that they have in the 1st century. And here's another picture between the arrows. Okay. Now I told you, we know the story, David gets settled in there, and he wants to bring the Ark of the Covenant to the city of David as a resting place until his son Solomon can build the temple. And, you know, this is all listed there in 2 Samuel. You know the story, you've heard it, that he doesn't do his research on it with the Levites and priests, and he begins to have the ark carried. They set it down, and it's ready to it looks like it's going to tip over, and Uriah puts his hand on it to steal the ark. He wasn't trying to be, do anything. He just thought, but God don't need any help, if that represents God. And so God killed him instantly. And David took it to the house of Obed-Edom and sat there for 3 months until he could talk to the scribes and find out, well, what's the prescribed way to carry the ark? And it was about the priests and shoulders and how they carried it and all that. And eventually he brings it into Jerusalem, puts it in what is called the Tabernacle of David. But it's in the city of David, in Zion. That's where the ark was. He wrote Psalm 132, and it's basically talking about the tabernacles and the Ark of the Covenant. it couldn't be talking about the Holy of Holies in the temple because in David's time it wasn't built yet. His son Solomon built it. In the middle of his reign, David is usurped by his son Absalom. Now, Absalom in Hebrew means father of peace. But he was nothing of a father of peace. He was a contradiction. He was a father of lies and flattery, because all he did was go around to manipulate the kingdom and to gain David's loyal entourage on his side. And so Absalom has this following, and David has a few loyal followers left, but he knows Absalom, his son, is coming, and David flees the city. He flees the city, and we're told that in 2 Samuel 15 that David went up by the ascent of the Mount of Olives and wept when he went up. And this is an allusion, a prophetic picture to Yeshua when he was riding the donkey on his last week, and he came down. It says not on the ascent where David was going the other way. Yeshua came on the donkey the opposite way on the descent of the Mount of Olives. It was the exact same spot, going the other way, and he wept over Jerusalem because of their rejection of him as their Messiah. And in other scriptures it tells us that David rode a mule when he went out. So you see the connection. David the king, and then the Messiah the king would come back and weep in a similar way. We would know that David would have, this didn't exist obviously in David's time, the temple, the Milo, David's castle that we talked about. David would have went down from the Milo, and he would have went into Kidron Valley, and the ascent of the Mount of Olives is right here, which is east. He would have went over, and he would have went into the desert area past Jericho, and he ended up setting his headquarters up in the northern part of Jordan, in Mahanaim in the scripture, which is to the east of the Sea of Galilee in Jordan today. And that's where he waited until Absalom was killed. You remember how he was killed? He had such long hair. He was charismatic, and the mule was the choice for a king, to ride back in those days. And Absalom was riding his mule, and he came under a thick-bowed tree, and his beautiful hair got caught in the tree, and the mule kept going. And Absalom's hanging there, dangling from his hair. And then Joab, the same Joab, comes and shoots darts at him and kills him. Okay? And then David returns to his throne in Jerusalem. Now, right before David's death, he is old. He is at the very last of his life. He's still alive, but another son called Adonijah attempts to usurp the throne from David's rightful heir, which was Solomon. We learn in 1 Kings that Adonijah, he was this prideful person, and he said, I will be king. And he went to En-Rogel. Remember I told you En-Rogel was in the tribe of Judah? It's 600 meters away from the Gihon spring. And I'm going to show you that in a moment, a map. But he did not tell Solomon, Nathan the prophet, or David, but he got some of David's, there was two high priests. There was Abiathar and Zadok. And he got Abiathar to go with him over here. And so he thought that he was going to do a quick one on David, his father, and he was going to get himself enthroned as king. However,